Hey everyone, welcome to the Body Mind Spirit Show with me, your host, Rita Hurry. Today I have a special guest. I've got Jerome Petty, who is an author. Jerome, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. So, first of all, I want to say a big thank you for writing your memoir, From Broken to Blessed, where you share your personal journey. It must have taken a lot for you to write this, but I know that many must have gained a lot of support, and I'm sure you've saved quite a few lives in the process from people reading your book. So, can you share with us today a little bit about your journey so that the listeners and the viewers are aware of it for those that haven't read the book as yet, but not giving too much away, of course?
Okay. Well, my journey from broken to blessed is basically about a failed marriage that led to a broken family that led me to depression and alcoholism, and then an attempt at suicide. But fortunately for me, I have to say God intervened and healed my broken heart and gave peace to my troubled mind and blessed me beyond my dreams.
Yeah, so because you were very young, weren't you, when you were contemplating ending your life? Is that correct?
I was 27 years old at the time.
Yeah. So I mean, were you, did you have faith in God before, or was that a new experience for you? Because I know sometimes maybe people come from the background of going to church and being brought up with God in their life, or was this a totally new experience?
When I was 12 years old, I got, baptized and started going to church. Well, actually, I was going to church earlier than that, but I got baptized when I was 12.
Mm.
So, I mean, I was taught of God, I'll put it that way. So by the time I was 27 years old, when I did attempted suicide,
Yeah.
I knew about God, but I didn't know him personally, not on a personal level. So I just knew what the preacher told me, what my mom and pop told me about God.
Yeah, yeah. So what was that transition? Where did your faith change in order for God to work his miracle and to intervene?
It was after my suicide attempt. A few years went by, and I had moved from my hometown of New Jersey down to Savannah, Georgia,
Yeah.
just to get away from all the problems that I was dealing with that led me to the point where I attempted suicide. I moved away just to get a fresh new start. And it was the perfect setting for me to just spend alone time with God. And I truly poured my heart out to him, um, just spending a lot of time in solitude with God. And that's when the change came about. That's when I started actually hearing from God through the Bible, through my circumstances, and through dreams. That's when the game changed. And I became not just a believer because of what my pastor was telling me or my mother and father was telling me. I became a believer because I was actually hearing from God.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's the big impact, isn't it? Because it's where you transition and like you said, you spent time with God. You did that and you did that voluntarily. You knew that God had intervened and helped and kept you alive. And you just needed that time. And God had also placed you in an opportunity to be alone with Him and have that journey. For those that obviously go through, going to church, having the routine, what would you say to them who maybe don't bring in the conversations and the almost the intimate relationship with God and to make that transition? What would you say to them? How do you begin? Like for you, what made you, where did you start?
Well, I'll have to say first and foremost, I tried my best to live in obedience to his word. And again, spending that time alone with him and truly putting him first in my life. So, living in true obedience, spending time alone with him, spending time in his word, um, and I'll even say fasting. That was a big part for me, and prayer.
Yeah.
And again, just staying away from all the distractions because there's so many distractions out there in the world to pull you back into it. That's what took me into a more intimate relationship with God. And I just had to cut some people off and cut some activities off because I wanted to know God for real. I didn't. I wanted to know if this was real. So
Mm.
I put myself totally into it, and I got something out of it.
Yeah, that must have been a difficult decision to make, especially like obviously, addiction was involved as well, and all that, to be able to say, I'm going to cut myself off from all of that, and I am going to take this time out to be with God. I mean, it might sound like a stupid question to me and you, but where did that strength come from to say, no, I'm going to do this? Because not many can be that resilient.
I would have to say it was rooted in my just tired of being sick and tired of life and being hurt.
Mm.
I'd been through some, bad relationships. And again, with this whole situation, my marriage falling apart, not spending time with my kids like I used to, just everything that was weighing on me was just, it had taken a toll. It's like I had hit a brick wall. So the only way I could look was up. And I'm like, if this doesn't work, I don't know what else is going to work. So I just got tired of being hurt and living in pain and problems. So that made it easier for me to go down on that bended knee and put my whole heart into it.
Yeah. What would you say, to someone who is tired and with their situation and is going down that dark path into depression? Because obviously I know you do a lot of work with people now in terms of helping them, those that have suicidal ideation. What would you say to them, and how do you help them?
Of course, I encourage them to turn their hearts over to God and turn their problems over to God. And the same way God walked with me through my mess, God would lead them to the other side of their problems. And I would like to share that Psalm 23 with them. The same God that leads us to still waters and green pastures is the same God that will walk with us through the valley of the shadow of death. And then after he leads us through that valley, God will prepare a table for us in the presence of our enemies, and our cup will overflow. That's my testimony because God walked me through that dark season
Yeah.
and got me to the other side and led me to abundance where here I was traveling the globe. I never imagined working in 9 different countries and traveling the world for the past 20 years. All this was on the other side of my
Yeah.
problems.
And it's just getting to that other side, isn't it? And God actually, like you said, took you from that into a completely different lifestyle. You've traveled to some great countries, and you mentioned about, in your bio, I was reading about how these traveling and being in these different countries actually gave you more time with God to be able to explore, and I'm sure explore the cultures around you while still maintaining your faith.
Hmm. It was a beautiful experience. And one of the things, it's strange as it may seem, I went to a few countries that were third world, and they were the happiest people I've ever met. And, in the United States, we're it's said to be the greatest country in the world, but still and yet, when I've gone to these other countries, these people, like I said, living in third world countries, were the happiest people I've ever met. So I did what I could do to help people in these countries, but what I took away from that, those countries, were the joy and the peace that they had in their heart. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, yeah, no, I totally understand. Some people say, some experts say it's a mindset thing that gets you out of um, those troubled waters and, you know, depression and those dark moments. Is it just a mindset thing, or is it having faith in God? I mean, obviously, you know, where your journey has brought you and what we've spoken about already, we can see that it's more than that. But what, you know, can you shed some light on, is it a mindset thing plus your faith? If you can shed some light on that, would be great.
I think it's a combination of both. First of all, I would have to say my faith is what changed my mindset on my circumstances. Because
Mm.
now, when I go through hardships and struggles and problems, I know and I believe that God, by faith, is using these circumstances to better me in some form or fashion. In some way, when this trial or tribulation is over, God is going to use it for his purpose, or it's going to better me in some form or fashion. So I don't look at my circumstances with so much dread and fear like I used to in the past. If anything, now I'm thinking, okay, God is up to something, and
Yeah,
I'll just talk to him about the situation, whatever it is. And of course, God is for me; He's not against me. So I walk in faith, dealing with my circumstances now.
yeah, yeah, that's beautiful. In terms of social media, because obviously social media does play a part in how people perceive of themselves, do you advise people to limit their time on social media? Because especially like young people today, very heavily influenced by it. And what would you advise if someone was listening today?
I myself, as far as social media, I got into it to promote my book, but at the same time, um, I feel like if God is behind my agenda, God is going to promote this book. So honestly, I don't. I got a website that the publisher that I went through, they created a website for me, or should I say, a page on Facebook, and it's got my picture and my book plastered all over the place. And it's not me, because I feel like I don't want to actually. I want to publicize the book, but I more so want God to publicize it. That way it's going to be actually successful if God endorses it. And the only reason I wrote this book is because I felt God wanted me to write it. So yeah, I personally, I think all this social media stuff is a bit much.
Mm.
That's just how I feel about it.
Yeah,
But
yeah. No, I do love it when you said about that you want God to publicize it, and God will, you know, it will do well because God's in control, you know, and I totally resonate that even with my business. I'd sort of like handed it over to God and say, you know,
mhm,
you're the you're the CEO, you take it, and I'm just the earthly person here doing
right.
what you guide me to do. You know, whatever you want me to do, I will do it. You know, and since making that commitment, things have moved in directions that I wouldn't have even thought of. So I love that, and I can resonate with that. What has been the feedback like? Have you had quite a few people reaching out to you, or is it um, early days? I mean, what has the feedback been in terms of sharing your story? I'm sure it's been done. It's done really well.
I've got some feedback from people. It's not really where I wanted to be at this point, but again,
Mm,
like you just said, God is in control. It's all in His timing.
yeah,
Um, but the feedback that I have got was very impactful. And again, if God can work through me and touch one person, and they just reach out and tell me how meaningful this book was to them, it touches my heart. So
Yeah.
the feedback I have received was very meaningful, and it made my heart smile. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
I think even if you touch one person's heart or, you know, saving someone's life, that is maybe that was the purpose for God sending that message out there through you, using you. Not to say that that's the only person, but you know there are others to come. But like you said, it's for God to give it to, because God knows what people are going through more than
Right.
you know where you are. You know, we're just like in our little space, but
Mhm.
maybe someone like here in the UK will pick up that book and it'll transform their lives. So yeah, definitely. Now, one in like men are 4 times more likely to contemplate suicide than women. Why is that?
Ever since I was a kid, I was told that boys or men don't cry.
Mm,
Men are told not to show emotions, to hide them.
yeah,
And when men do express their feelings, they're showing vulnerability. And men don't like feeling vulnerable. So majority of men will sit there, whatever they're dealing with, they don't share it with people. And then eventually, just like what happened to myself, I was the same way. I didn't even want to share my problems with my family or my friends. I felt like I was putting my burdens on them.
yeah,
So there I was, taking pills, trying to, you know, end my life because I didn't want to open up and talk to somebody. I'm sure it would have made a difference.
yeah, yeah. But I guess it's also knowing, well, who can I trust? Who can I actually be honest with as well, isn't it?
Yes, because yeah, I thought about that because I didn't want to share what I was going through, and somebody is running behind my back and telling other people and cracking jokes on me.
Mm,
That ran through my mind. So yeah, I was just being careful who I did talk to. I did have one friend that I talked to, but again, I felt like I was bothering him, so I stopped talking to him about my problems and
yeah, yeah,
made that decision.
yeah. What can both men and women do today to remain open and to be able to help those who are contemplating suicide? I mean, what can we do?
I would encourage people, if you know they're going through a difficult season, to reach out to them. Try to encourage them to talk. And even if they don't want to talk, they don't, they're showing like they don't want to be bothered, still reach out to them. Even if you don't call them, send them a message, just letting them know that you are a concerned person, that you care about them and you love them, and let them know that.
Yeah,
And encourage them whenever they want to talk. I'm always here for you. I don't care what time it is. Reach out to me. That shows that you care and you're concerned about them and whatever they're going through. And I think that would make a big impact.
yeah, yeah. So what is on the horizon for you right now? Are you working on any new projects, or are you just focused on like just surrendering the book and let it do its work before you move on to any other projects, or
Well,
what's
again, like said, this book is going to make its impact in God's timing because
mm,
I do believe He had me write this book for a purpose.
yeah,
Um, I've been home the last 7 months. I've been, contracting for the last 20 years. I've been home. And these last 6 months, I've been pushing this book.
yeah,
So I've been working on something else, and it deals with personal issues as well. And of course, how God, worked with me through some other issues.
yeah,
And might be heading back overseas, but I'm not sure. That's kind of like in the wind right now. We'll see what happens.
yeah, yeah. No, that's good. It's good. I can hear like it is just remaining open to where God takes you, isn't it? And just being that vessel that
That's
you,
it.
yeah, I love that. What tip would you like, or tip or even advice would you like to share with the listeners and viewers today who may be going through something but are not at that stage of suicide but can feel themselves really going downhill? What advice would you give them in terms of helping them out of that before it gets to that?
First and foremost, I would encourage them to give their hearts to God and turn their problems over to God. In the same way God walked me through my dark season. And that's what it was. It was temporary, but I looked at it as a permanent situation and I didn't see no solution to get out of it. That's why I attempted suicide. But I want to let them know your situation is temporary and God has something for you on the other side of your problems. And let Him walk you to it, to the other side.
Yeah, yeah. One last question I'd like to ask, it just came to me, is how did you manage the patient side of it? Because that's one thing that many believers struggle with. It's like, I've handed it over to God, but there's nothing. What did you do in that meantime process? How did you stay strong in that?
I just stayed in prayer. Again, that was the biggest part when you don't hear nothing from God and it's just silence and you're praying about something and it doesn't seem like anything is changing. Uh, but I've learned now that when you don't hear nothing from God and it's quiet, God is up to something. He's working on something. So now, again, my whole perspective on God being quiet and I'm not seeing any change, I'm filled with excitement because I know He's up to something. Now, it took me a while to learn that and grow that way, but yeah, I'm here now.
Yeah, yeah, and living proof of it. But it is about that faith, isn't it? And
Yeah,
trusting in the unseen.
yes, exactly.
Definitely. Jerome, you have been amazing, and I thank you once again for sharing this memoir with us all, and just for being an ambassador of strength and to show that just that total reliance and that faith in God can pull you through. And I'm sure this interview will um, change people's perspective, not just on what they're going through, but also how to hold out in that, having that faith in God and building their relationship and their quiet time with Him, which is so important. Where can the viewers and listeners go to find out more about you and to find out where they can read your book?
They can reach me on Facebook. I have two Facebook pages. One is just Jerome Petty, and the other one is titled Author Jerome Petty. The book can be purchased at Barnes and Nobles and Amazon. It's on audiobook, Kindle, and paperback. Published by Christian Faith Publishing.
Brilliant. Well, Jerome, it's been a pleasure speaking to you. Thanks again for taking time out to come on the show. And I wish you all the best for the future, and God bless.
God bless you, and thank you for having me.
Thank you. Well, everyone, that's the end of the show. I hope you stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll be back real soon. Take care. Bye.